Greetings, technology enthusiasts. I am Chandrahas and I am delighted to be here with you representing CyberBrainer. Do you not believe that the technology sector is advancing at an unprecedented rate, making this an opportune moment to acquire the skills that will facilitate your progress? With CyberBrainer, we are empowering you to take control of your own future. At CyberBrainer, we do not merely impart your interests. We assert that information is power, yet it is the application of knowledge that distinguishes you. Our courses are meant to equip you with essential skills, whether you are pursuing data science, understanding artificial intelligence, or delving into cybersecurity. Let us commence the session and seize the future today. Thank you.
Creating a new report. Let's start with this. Person doesn't have I have a question. Just a generic one. I will decide. I don't know. It may sound a little silly, but how do we come to a decision point like we're going to use the VLOKUP or the Lewis condition when we are creating the calculated fields? Depends on the requirement, right? It all depends on how I can pull that. Pull that information. I don't think you'll ever have a scenario wherein you can pull the same information using two different calculations, maybe through some related instances and also through LRP. It doesn't work that way. Depends on what business object you're building on your report on and how do you want to or what information you want to pull. And what is the source field? For example, if the source field is, let's say, a multi-instance field, let's say positions of an employee. Now for the positions of an employee, let's say you want to get their positions. Effective date. For this, you cannot build a LRP because related values don't work on multi-instance. It all depends on what is your source field, on what is your target business object on which you want to get that information and what information you want to get. A very, I think, generic response. That's how it gets decided. One scenario is there, like we want to bring number of positions in particular organization based on a specific date. Suppose, let's say November 2020. How do we do that? Just do the effective date of position to equal to that date, or do we create any calculated? We can do an EMI wherein the condition could be only those fields with an effective date of this or after this, whatever. Because there would be a multiple positions ultimately, isn't it? You'll do an EMI or you're building your report on positions. Business object itself, then obviously your data source itself is getting positions. Then you will just put a filter in the report. Then you don't have to build a calculation. Right, that's what I said. If you're building your report on worker, then you will do an EMI because for each worker can have multiple positions. You only want those positions which are effective, let's say after certain. But the report is on position itself. No calculation is required. Then it's just a question of building your filters. Then just we can say effective position, effective date is equal to this date. It would only bring. It all depends on your report business object and the target field you want to get onto your report. Business object. And if they say we just want for a particular entity, or we can filter that also. Just put that thing in the filter. Let me give an example. Let's say I want to check all organizations that an employee is a member of. Right. I am a member of a given supervisory org, but also given company, a given cost center, and on and forth. I'll put a different data source. Let's take this data source. A very simple report, just 2 fields. Let me quickly run this report. Now all these organizations are automatically shown to me in a single box. But let's say for each of these organizations, I want to know who is their manager. Let's assume or their leader, but also what is the subtype of these organizations. For example, if this is a cost center, what is the subtype associated with that cost center? Now, how do I do that? I have a couple of options. I can go in here. Let me edit my report and let's look at the first option. What I can do is now I can go to this organization memberships, which is my related business object. And then for each of these organizations, let's say I want to get that subtype. And also for each of these organizations, let's say I want to get the leader. For cost center, it would be the cost center manager or supervisor. It would be the manager for matrix. It would be the matrix manager. This automatically gets me the leader for that organization or the manager for that organization. Let me run this. Right? Again running it for the same supervisory org. Like here you have used worker and then its related business object both in this report, right? Sometimes I've seen they've used 3 or 2 or 3 like more business objects. All those should be related business objects only, right? Without, if they are not related, you'll not even be able to select them right. If something is not available, if you search for it, you'll not be able to search. Alright, now this is what is actually happening. If you see, this is my worker and this is the related business object, which is a multi-instance field. This worker is a member of all these organizations. Next, we took these organizations, which is here. And for these organizations, I'm trying to get the subtype as well as who's the leader. Now this is where system gives me data in multiple rows. That's because this is a multi-instance field. And for each instance of that multi-instance field that I'm getting the subtype, which means this is probably the subtype of this company. Right. It is getting me subtypes of each of the organizations that this worker belongs to because I'm pulling this data from the related business objects. Workday gives me this data on separate rows. Right. Now, what is the solution? I want to get this data into a single box. Similar to this. Now for those scenarios, I can do an ARI, which is aggregate related instances. What I'll do is I'll create a field. Right. I want to get all this information from organization membership onto worker. My primary business object is worker because I need to get this data from the related business object, which is basically organization, onto the primary business object. Right. Once I do, that system would automatically aggregate everything. This is similar to this field, right? Here, this is a field which gets data from organization onto worker, and that's why everything is grouped together. That's exactly what I want to do. I've selected worker, and I'm taking aggregate related instances. Right. All this information is on organization memberships. This is my source field. Right. Now, here I can build a condition. I can say only aggregate organizations which are effective, let's say 1st of Jan 2020. Right. Or only get company and cost center, or only get standard organizations. This is where I can build a condition. But in my case, I basically want to pull all organizations. And for each of these organizations, what do I want to aggregate? I want to aggregate subtype. Right? Because currently subtype is shown as a single instance of this multi-instance field. I copy this field. Let me add subtype here. Let's run this report now. Instead of this coming on separate rows, I basically aggregated everything. Right. This field acts exactly similar to this field. Right. What if there were duplicate values? For example, if you see, let's assume in this case there are two leaders. Steve Morgan, I believe, is the leader for the supervisory org, and Teresa Serrano. I think he's the manager for the company. Steve Morgan, Teresa Serrano. Another attribute of now, if I do an aggregation for leadership role assigned to, again, everything would be shown in a single column, exactly similar to how subtypes show. But if there are any duplicate values, what happens? If you see, here I have company and company. But when I look at the aggregation, it only shows company once. Whenever you aggregate something, system would automatically remove any duplicate values. Right? Wherever you have more than one value, system would go ahead and remove them. For example, I could be a member of more than one location hierarchy, but then when these things get aggregated, they would be removed. That is aggregate related instances. Next, let's look at lookup organization. I'm creating a call field. Now we know that supervisory org is a hierarchy. I have, let's say, at the top level, we have global modern services, which is the company. Under company, I have a number of supervisory orgs, which let's assume is the business areas or hubs. Under supervisor, under second level, I have a third level which is basically, let's say, the division. Under divisions, we have, let's say, departments and on and forth. For each worker, let's say a given worker is in a supervisory org which is at level 7 from the top. For each worker, let's assume I want to know what is the business unit they belong to. Now how can we check that? We already know that. Many organizations, they have this structure. Let's say the top supervisory org is Shell. Under Shell, we have a number of subordinate organizations. We have HR, we have sales, we have operations, and on and forth. This represents the business areas under HR. I have payroll and on and forth. This represents the division. This some worker. Under this there could be some other supervisory org called AB, C, under which there could be DEF and let's say KLM. Now this some worker called Smith who belongs to the supervisory org. Which business area he belongs to? He belongs to HR. Right. There's some worker who resides here called Ravi. Now he belongs to business area called sales. For each worker. Basically, what do I want to get? I want to get the second level of the supervisory structure they belong to. I didn't receive the link for the class. I'm not sure about that. The institute sends those links. Alright? That's fine. Anyways, the class is getting recorded and we have just started 15 minutes back. This is what I want to pull. Right. The second level of the organization that any given employee belongs to. This employee may belong to here and then his second level is his actual supervisory org. For that we have a cal field available which is basically lookup organization. I'm creating a new cal field. Again on worker, function is lookup organization. Sir, can you please explain why we are using lookup organization? We are going to level down. That's the thing, right? I want to get the business unit that an employee belongs to. My organization type is supervisory. Right? Because in this case, I want to get this information from the supervisory structure. I could have built this calculated field on a call center, on a company, on any other organization. This is where I'm basically saying in which organization hierarchy should Workday check. And I'm saying check in the supervisory hierarchy. I can also specify a certain subtype. Saying only check the hierarchy of the organization is of type, let's say A, B, C or whatever. Then I'll specify what is the top level organization in my hierarchy. My hierarchy, the top level organization we know is Global Modern Services. Right? And then I can say get me, return me value. Within this hierarchy or Global Modern Services or Shell or whatever. Right. I'm saying this is the top level of the supervisory hierarchy and there could be hundreds of levels. Get me an organization which is associated with level X and I can get second level, third level, fourth level, fifth level or whatever level I want. I'm saying get me an organization, that's you, which is associated with level 3. The reason I'm selecting level 3 is because at the top I think we have GMS. Under GMS we have Executive Management Group and under Executive Management Group we have HR operations. I think it should be still level 2. Let's check. And we always take field type to be single instance because supervisory is, or do we like which field type? This one. No depart. Field type as single instance. If you want, you can take multi-instances as well. If an employee could belong to C, an employee would only belong to one supervisory organization, right? But an employee can belong to multiple cost center hierarchies. Right? An employee can belong to multiple location hierarchies if my location is part of multiple location hierarchies. Certain or but he, an employee can only belong to one supervisory or not more than one, which means he'll only belong to one supervisory hierarchy. It all depends on which hierarchy you're looking at. It depends on the value we'll be getting. Will be returned from this calculated field or the value because I thought that it's super. Why you're saying single instance? It could be. Can an employee belong to more than one supervisory or no? If we have like a matrix organization, then he can belong to. Then you'll select multi-instance, right? Because your employees can belong to multiple matrix organizations. It all depends on the organized can your given worker. Where are we building this report on? We are building on worker. For each worker, it will basically check this hierarchy and check which organization he belongs to at level 2. But let's say if an employee belongs to a center hierarchy, now I may belong to multiple center hierarchies in one hierarchy. It could be a different center in another. For example, if I am on an international assignment, right, and I may belong to more than one center hierarchies. It all depends on what option, what field type you're looking for. This time, let's take global modern services and let us pull data for all subordinates. And I'll also want to include managers. It should be level 3. If you see, it's for every employee. It's getting me executive management group, and the reason it is getting me executive management group is level 2. At the top, we have global modern services and about global models. Below global modern services, we have executive management. Let me change this. Level 3 instead. And now let me go back and run this report. Alright, Logan McNeil. She belongs to human resources for Steve Morgan. It doesn't show any organization. That's because Steve Morgan belongs to a level which is about level 3. He actually belongs to Global Modern Services, which is basically the top level supervisor. Right? This is where he belongs to. Let's pick some employee. Let's take this employee. Somewhere down, that way we can go deeper. Let's take this worker Raymond. Which supervisory org he belongs to? He belongs to Consulting Services Asia Pacific Group. This is the supervisory org he belongs to. If I the superior to the supervisory org is Consulting Services. If I go to the details, the superior to the supervisory org is Operations. Now that's what report is getting. But let's see. This is operations. If I click operations, above operations, we have executive management group, which is level 2, and above executive management group, we have global modern services, which is level 3. For each worker, it is basically getting me the level 3 organization that worker belongs to or the level 3 supervisory org that worker belongs to. Right? And this I know that Raymond belongs to the operations business unit. Right? It basically, as the field name suggests, it allows me to look up an organization hierarchy and get an organization which is at a specific level. Right. Next, if you remember, when we discussed about fields and data sources earlier, we mentioned that some fields and some data sources, they come with built-in prompts. The moment you add that field, or for example, the moment I have added this data source, which is workers by organization, it has its own built-in prompt, which is basically the organization includes subordinate and on and forth. Similarly, certain other fields as well, they come with built-in prompts. And we had, I think, looked at that example earlier. But any which was, let me go ahead and add one such field. I'm adding a field called organization by type, I think. Custom organization by type again. A worker can belong to many custom organizations. Right. The custom organization for the worker's primary position. Now this actually comes with a built-in prompt because we are saying show the custom organization by type. When I run include this field and let me do that in the prompt work, they would ask me which custom organization type because there are many types available. Now when I go in here, if you see, it has automatically added this field. And now it's showing me not this one. Sorry, this was the this show, organization by type. And this is where I can select the organization type. Let's take not sure which one has data. But let's take this one again. I'm not sure if it has data or not. We have selected gift hierarchy. I should have selected includes subordinate organization. Basically what it will do is now when I run this report in this field called custom organization by type and I've selected gift hierarchy, it will basically check does this worker belongs to any custom organization which is of type gift hierarchy. That's what it will do. Right. But I want to pre-populate this prompt. Right. That's what I would want to do. And I can create. Ultimately, if you say I want to pass a value to this prompt when I'm running this report. Now there are a couple of ways I could have put the value in a filter directly, right? That's what I can do. Instead of that, I can also create another calculate it. We can create this prompt calculated field. If you see, it is basically ask. The meaning of the field itself is I can look up the value of a certain field by providing them with prompt. CF worker, and I'm saying custom org. When I go in here, it will only show me those fields on the worker business object which have prompts. If I go in here, all the fields that it will show me are those fields which have a prompt value or when prompt value has to be passed. Now, what is that we want to look? We want to look at custom organization type. Here, if I take any other field, for example, let me take position. It's not giving me all the other positions. Field with the primary position, the normal position. It is only giving me that position, field which has a built-in prompt. Right? In this calculate, I can only take those fields which actually have a built-in prompts. This is my source field. Now I can specify. You see the prompt option directly here. Let's take not sure which one of these have data actually. Let's take cost center hierarchy. First, let me run this report by selecting cost center hierarchy here. Earlier we had selected right. I'm running this report for cost center hierarchy. Let's see what data it gives me. Alright, Logan McNeil, he belongs to this cost center hierarchy. How would I know that if I go to this cost center, the cost center will belong to this hierarchy? Right, again here. Let's edit this report now instead of directly taking this field. Now what I'm doing is, again, why would you create this field? We could have directly entered the value of this prompts. For example, if I go to prompts and come in here. If you see I could have provided the option here instead of creating a calculate. Right? It will still get me the exact same result. I could have entered a prompt value here. Instead of that, what I've done is I have actually created a calculate which, again, as I mentioned, would get me the exact same data. Right. Now I delete it and run this report. Now that prompt is no longer, or at least system is not prompting me to enter the value of that organization type. That's because I've repopulated the value through a calculate. Right? And if you see, it's getting me exactly same data. Is it better for me to create a calculate? Probably not. Right? As I mentioned, I could have taken this field and provided the value directly in the prompts on the report itself instead of creating a complete new calculate. Right? It's still getting me the same data. Which conditions do we create this lookup field with prompts then? I usually don't. And that's why I didn't talk about a lot of these fields, because usually a lot of these fields at least I have not created in a very long time. The lookup organization is something we usually do because many times you have this requirement. That is common lookup organization. But there's another call field which is usually used. Let's say each of these workers, let's say I want to get their HR partner, and HR partner, let's say, depends on the location that the worker belongs to. Right now, in a given supervisory org, for example, might have some employees working out of UK, some employees working out of India, some employees, team members working out of US. Now, because HR partner depends on the location, they would each have different HR partners. What I want to get the HR partners. For that, there's a call field which is again commonly used. And let's look at that call field. The call field is called lookup role, I believe. Lookup organization roles. What era part? Right. I'm basically checking what role I want to select, and I'm saying here it will show me basically all the organizational roles that can be assigned to location, roles that can be assigned to a supervisory or company. It will basically show me all roles. Let's see. Which roles people have? Let's take this one. Organization type is again not required. You'll only use organization type if, for example, a given role can be assigned to more than one organization as per your security setup. But here, because it says location, I know this role is only applicable to location. Right. There is actually data. Let's go to this worker. How can I check if I go to the worker profile? I would have the option to look at the support roles. I go to security profile. I can look at support role. Let's also pull some other worker wherein each ER partner is different. They all belong to the same. HR partner by location. It's if you see here, there are quite a few HR partners, but it's getting me only one because I've selected single instance. I selected multiple instances. Let's do that and see how my output changes. You're seeing one employee can have more than one HR partner based on the same location, because all these people are assigned as HR partner for USA, Western USA. Right. Now it's getting me on. This is exactly how single instance, multi-instance. Now it's getting me on. That location are coming to which this employee belongs. It's basically all it is doing is it is all these lookup fields. They look up a structure, an organization, structure or hierarchy, and then they get you certain values. Now, some of the lookup fields have never used. I think some of those were mentioned in the list that was shared. I have no clue. Yes, I meant I because I saw that in the. I'll give it a list. I thought like the lookup hierarchy organization, lookup organization role which has field with prompts. Lookup field with prompts. We have lookup hierarchy. I have not used. We have looked at lookup organization prompt for some related instances. We have already discussed. If you look at the recording, we have already looked at some related instances. We have also looked at count related instances, though I did not create a KLC field for count related instances. If you want to quickly do that, if you remember, we had this discussion. Basically, for example, for each worker, I want to count the number of allowances that that worker has. Right? Not the sum of those allowances. Or maybe I want to count how many addresses that worker has. I can use count related instances as the name itself suggests. As the name suggests, I want to count the number of instances that this particular worker is related to or this particular primary instance is related to. Right. Again, this is exactly similar to how we created R. Even the layout is. Right? I want to check all allowance plans that are assigned to worker and basically I want to count them. Or maybe I only want to count those allowances wherein the worker is getting a monthly payment or wherein he's getting X amount of dollars or anything, right? I can count them based on a condition. Right? This worker has 2 allowances. Let's quickly check that. Right? Allowances that a given worker is related to what is? Some related instances. Again, if you remember, we had discussed that. I'll quickly show that to you. But then it requires that currency conversion. It will not work any, which is we have covered it already, but since it's part of your list, I right. Once again, I could have taken the same field allowance plans and then basically sum here. It's not counting how many allowances I have. It's basically counting or basically summing, for example, the amount of those allowances or the value of those allowances. Sum basically sums the related instances. Count counts the related instances. I remember wherein you have just changed everything to like GBB and all other. Exactly. And then you can't. Exactly. We have a requirement of where on the like the request leave of absence. We have a new plan and we have a requirement where one of the new plan they want like the minimum time, like minimum duration to be like 1 week. If an employee is requesting that plan, then he or she should not be able to request it for less than 1 week. How do I create that validation? That is not in reporting. That's in validation. If you go to leave or the time of the leave of absence, then you have the option to. You have predefined validation options available. That's not related to reporting. But you require to create calculator for that also. Not in time of that's what I said. You have predefined value. For example, you don't want anyone to take a leave of less than half a day. Right? A time of absence. A time of absence is a completely different model. But sometimes you have to create the calculator within that module, right? Like validations, all validations are not delivered. Right. But again, I cannot discuss that now because I'll have to look at your system. That will take some time. If you want, you can connect with the institute and set up an hour with me. We just have 50 minutes left. Let me quickly talk about the other building topics. We have this report for 1 hour today. For 2 hours. No, just for 1 hour. We have this again 1 hour. Today I'll complete all the topics. I am not expecting us to have a session tomorrow. Scorecard. Oh, that's not part. We have other reports also like transpose. I'm talking about that. Find worker. Now this is a Workday delivered report. What is a Workday delivered search? Now this is a Workday delivered report of type search. Now if you see, it looks a bit different. Right on the left hand side, we have these options. Basically, when I'm running this report, it is getting me a list of all the workers in the system. But then on the left hand side, I have these values which are basically known as facets. For example, I can come in here and, for example, select only those workers. Let's say who belongs to age group 41 to 50 and it shows me there are 160 workers. The moment I select this, if you see, my layout refreshes and now it's giving me only those 160 workers who satisfy this facet criteria. Now these are called search reports. Very simple report, exactly created as an advanced report. You'll go ahead and create a report of type. If you go to create custom report, we have the option called very search report. Right. We'll again select the data source. We'll specify the report name. I'm copying this report. The data sources, if you see the same one, workers for HCM reporting. Now, how is this report different from a normal advanced report? Let's look at the layout of this report. Once again, exactly similar. Here I have the report name. The report type is search. It's not an advanced report. We have the data source plus. Because this is an index data source, it comes with its own filters, right? If you select a different data source, if the data source doesn't have filters, then it will not use those filters. If I scroll down now, if you see once again, this is similar to how we have an advanced report. Similar to an advanced report, we're adding fields. The difference is on this report. We cannot add fields from a related business object. Unlike here, wherein I can go and select a completely different business object and add fields related to that business object. Here, I don't have that option. Every field that is getting added is from the primary business object. Right? But exactly similar to how we add fields on a custom report or an advanced report, I can go ahead and add fields. What is the need of creating this search report? I'm coming to that. Again, worker has lots of fields. It's not showing me. For example, I can go and add company or any other field. Right. Basically, all fields are available. Now, what are the fields that are added? Worker, the supervisory org that the person belongs to, location, job profile, and the photo of the employee as well. Right. A worker is my primary results field. Now my results are displayed based on the primary results field. Now how is it determined? Basically, based on the business object you have selected, and in the options you have the values available. For example, the moment you select this field, which is again a Workday delivered field, you have the option to show the image. Right. We have also looked because this field is a field of type photo. Workday gives you that option wherein you show worker. You can show worker's photo as well. This is not relevant or not really different from how we have seen an advanced report. Now, what is the difference? Again, you can add filters. If you want the prompt, options are same. This is all similar. The difference is on the Advanced tab. If you go to the Advanced tab and scroll down, if you remember, on the left-hand side we had those facet search options. Now all those facet search options are added here. If I don't want something because this, I have copied the existing report. It's basically showing me all the options. But then had I been creating a custom report from scratch, I could have selected any facet search options that I want. Right. How do I do that? I'll click on plus search for any field here and add it. Right. For example, I want to add a facet search based on, let's say, employee's gender based on employee's active status or basically any of these fields available. These are the options which shows up on the left hand side. Right. And these are all pre-configured coming from the Find Workers report. What is facet search, sir? So, if you can just explain me. Let me run this report and then I'll show you. Seven errors. This is not in. Let me again save this and we'll look at the error. This is a security related error. Right. And the reason I'm getting this error is because these are all apps. This is all learning related fields. Academic ranks and all this. Obviously, we don't have the security set up or at least the user. I'm running this report which is Logan McNeil. She doesn't have access to these fields. This is a common error that you get when you don't have access to a certain field and you're trying to edit that report or save that report. Let me open this report side by side and then we'll have a look as to what is what. Alright, my primary results field is worker. And if I go to report output, this is my primary results which is shown in bold. Right? In addition to this, I want to show some additional information. What is the information I want to show? Supervisory or location job profile. If I go in here, it shows me the supervisory org followed by or with a break location job profile. Every other information apart from the primary information field or the primary results field is shown below. And I've also included a photo which is basically an image field, which basically shows here. Did I do any configuration for this? No, I don't have to write. This is a Workday delivered field. The moment I include an image field, Workday automatically shows it on a search report on the left-hand side. We can use this photo field in the advanced report also, right? We can do that. That's what I mentioned in terms of layout. There's no difference. The difference is how Workday shows these non-primary fields on a search report. What is the next bit? The next bit is the facet search. On the Advanced tab, we had all these options. Facet field. The first option is Manager's age group and on and forth. Now these options show up here. You see we have age group managers, everything. All those filters that I have added on the Advanced tab, and there are 49 filters. They all show up on the left-hand side. Right? And that's why this report is called a search report, because I have this option to do a facet search or basically include these facet search results on a search report. Right? If you go to an advanced report as well, you'll find the same facet search option. For example, this is an advanced report. Scroll down. Let me edit. What kind of data sources can we use apart from workers? As far as I know, the commonly used use cases for a search report is, for example, find jobs. If you go to find jobs, this is also a search report. And if we are not using the recruitment module, then do you know any place where we can use this? I have only experience with recruitment and HCM. At least I have not come across any other use case in my experience, but there could be. Workday doesn't provide a restriction as such, right? You can use it in any module you want to. Again, it would allow me to change any data source, or are there limitations on certain data sources for search report? I think it only allows you. I don't think it restricts in terms of a specific area. It's not like you can only build search reports in HCM and in recruitment, not in talent. I don't think there's a restriction in that sense. You can use it in any of the functional area. Is there a restriction in terms of a data source that can be used? I think it's only at indexed, but I'm not sure about that. But any which ways, if we have, we can always check that, right? If I go to create custom report, let me search for a compensation related data source. Oh, let me take not advanced. It's only showing index data sources, right? On a search report, we can only take an index data source, but there's no limitation as such as in terms of any functional area that Workday restricts this report. But these are all financials. This is absence. We had somewhere called time blocks. This is time tracking. Next, we just have a minute, but any which ways, we have something called inbox reports. Now, inbox reports are, we have some more calculated features I wanted to discuss. Can we do it today only? I can. I have a hard stop. Let me quickly at least cover inbox reports. Now, inbox report. The primary use cases, at least I have seen in all my experience, talent module. That's where you want to plot your employees in a grid. Again, the most common use cases. You want to plot your employees on a performance versus potential grid. My performance is 5. My potential is 3. I would be somewhere at the top of the grid. Let me once again to make it simple. Oh, what then? These are all delivered reports. This is an inbox report again. How would I create it? I'll select the report type as inbox. I'll select the data source and a report name. Now inbox plot my employees in a grid. For example, I have potential. And let's say I have 3 potential ratings. Employee can be potential 1 or 2 or 3. And in terms of performance, let's say I have performance ratings as exceeded expectations, average and below. Oh, I want to plot them into a grid. I want to plot potential on the horizontal axis and performance on the vertical axis. This is where I'm plotting them. Potential is 1, 2, 3 and performances. Performance is exceeded expectations. Average and below. Right? Or I should have put it the other way around. I am an average, my performance is average and let's say my potential is 2. This is the box I belong to, right? I am average and my potential is 2. I would belong to this box. Someone is exceeding expectation and his potential is number 3. He would belong to this box. inbox report allows me to configure this grid. That grid could be 3 by 3, 3 by 4, 5 by 4 or any other value. Right. Here I would specify how I want to plot. I am saying the row grouping, which is basically I'm saying the potential. I want to plot my employees based on their potential and based on their performance rating. This is how system is plotting the employees. Let me go ahead and I'm sure there's no talent data in the system. This is a test system, right? Calibration is again an activity within the talent module wherein you can calibrate the ratings for your employees. It's getting the potential rating from the calibration and given it override of potential, both potential. And then on the column grouping, they're basically taking the performance grouping. And now they're saying, do you want to show image and text? When this data shows in a box, you have the option of only showing the employee name or only showing the employee. I think only showing the employee photo or showing employee photo as well as name. It's basically asking Met, do I only want to show employee's image or both employee's image and text? Right. And then how would Workday decide what grid to use, whether it should be 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 or 5 by 5? It depends on how these mappings are plotted. If your potential rating is, let's say, a 5-point rating system would plot it on a 3 by 5 grid. There are some subsequent steps as well which are not really reporting related. But when you create this grid or create this report, then you have to do additional configuration, which is part of talent and performance. If you simply run this report, it doesn't give you any output. And then we have basically the same information. I can specify drill down values. I can specify filter values. I can specify prompt. Exactly the same thing. This is a Workday delivered report, right? This is a custom report. There's a Workday delivered report called Performance by Potential. Workday has delivered some 7 or 8 reports. This performance by potential, their performance by compare ratio, but this has been copied. Right. Run hex. Obviously, I don't think there's any performance data. Calibration. As I mentioned, when you launch a performance review, as part of performance review, we also do something called calibration. When you calibrate a manager, could have given me a level 5 rating, but then the HR and the senior team sit. And then which in India we usually call normalization. That's the term we hear in terms of a wider team context. They'll go ahead and calibrate my rating to maybe 4 or 3 because that's where they look at my performance, not just in terms within of my team, but in. There could be just 3 members. Right. But then in wider Workday community within this, there are 100 employees. Out of those 100 employees, how much did we perform? Again, there's no data available, we'll not be able to do that. But in terms of how we create a report, this is all it is. And that's why I didn't discuss those. These are all very simple reports in terms of building them. There's nothing that you need to do. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.